It's a pleasure to be with you at your convention in Los Angeles. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but instead I have sent this tape to let you know that my heart is with you and that I hope that this convention will result in more action to stop the persecution and the genocide that is now being perpetrated against the Rohingya people. We've been following this genocide and this persecution for many years, and as you know, I've spoken to your group in Los Angeles, in Milwaukee, and elsewhere, and that one of the main organizations that's fighting for you, Fortify Rights, is a member of our Alliance Against Genocide. I just want to discuss with you why Genocide Watch thinks that what is occurring to the Rohingya is genocide. As you know, we use a 10-stage model of how genocide develops. Classification is the first stage, and clearly the Rohingya are the victims of a classification system in Myanmar that literally classifies them out of citizenship in that country. If you take away someone's citizenship, they lose all of their rights as a citizen. And that is the most invidious, the most terrible kind of discrimination possible, because it means that people who are not considered citizens have no rights to vote, to get food, shelter, to serve in the government, to have any education. I mean, all of these things are the result of a denial of citizenship. Now, the Burmese government's classification system is based on its citizenship law of 1982, which simply left Rohingya off the list of ethnic groups that are part of the population of Burma. This is a complete denial of the facts about the Rohingya, because the Rohingya have lived in Rakhine province and elsewhere in Burma for hundreds of years. But by excluding them from citizenship in Burma and what is now called Myanmar, the government of Myanmar has essentially taken away all of their rights. We can see now the results. Because the Rohingya are not considered citizens, it is just fine, according to the Burmese government, to drive them out of their homes in Sittwe and other places they've lived for many years, put them into concentration camps. And in fact, 120,000 Rohingya are in a concentration camp just outside Sittwe. The desperation of the people in these camps has been expressed in the fact that many people are trying to escape from these camps on rickety boats that they sail out into the Andaman Sea, and many of those people die. These are the modern-day boat people. They've made the press a number of times. That was probably the first time that anyone paid any attention to the Rohingya. But the attention of the world seems to have shifted away from the Rohingya. We must revive that attention. One of the great publicity stunts that the Burmese government, the Myanmar government, has perpetrated in this last several years is to change the governmental system in Myanmar to what looks like a democracy. In fact, of course, it is not a democracy, because a large number of the seats in the national parliament are reserved for the same military officers who have always run Myanmar since its independence. This pseudo democracy is led by some of the same people who led the previous government. And the other charade that the Burmese government has perpetrated is to release Aung San Suu Kyi, who became a symbol of the resistance to the former Burmese government. She became a hero, in fact, won the Nobel Peace Prize. And yet she is part of the problem now, because she is a Burmese person, and she refuses to see beyond her Burmese identity. In fact, she has campaigned vigorously around the world to even deny that the Rohingya exist, to plead with the American ambassador and with the UN and others to stop using the name Rohingya. Well, let's see what that does. If you stop using the name of a people that they have chosen, you're in effect trying to classify them out of your system. Again, it is part of this classification operation. It's also a form of dehumanization, which is another of the stages of genocide, because the Burmese government has claimed that these people, the Rohingya people, are actually Bengalis. They are invaders from Bengal. They are illegal aliens, to put it in American terms. I've always wondered when I hear that term where the people who use the term think that what planet these people come from, if they're aliens. But that is exactly what the Burmese government is doing. And Aung San Suu Kyi is part of the problem. My view is that Aung San Suu Kyi, by being part of such a serious persecution of over 1 million people in Burma, in Myanmar, should give back her Nobel Peace Prize. She has forfeited the right to be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. It was all very nice when she was in captivity, in house arrest in the middle of Yangon, and people came to visit her as though she was a hero of the human rights movement. But now look what she's doing. She has a great deal of influence now in the Burmese government, and yet she too is denying the citizenship of the Rohingya people. During this past year, there have been a number of atrocities committed against the Rohingya. There has been a burning of a mosque. There's been the slaughter of a number of Rohingya people. We've had an increased repression in the area where the Rohingya live. In other words, the system is not getting better. If anything, it's getting worse. And it's getting worse under the guise of democracy. It is not, of course, as I say, a democracy. But what we have here instead is a very clever way of covering up oppression. So what I want to do today is suggest to you several ways in which the Rohingya need to activate their campaign against this oppression. First of all, we need to increase the pressure on governments around the world to recognize what is going on. We need a major lobbying campaign in Washington with senators, representatives, and with the President and the National Security Council to make it clear that it is not business as usual with the current government in Burma, that the so-called improvement has not improved the situation of the Rohingya. Secondly, we need to put pressure on the companies that are increasingly doing business with the Burmese under this so-called lifting of sanctions that the American government has now done. Companies that do business with Burma should get tons of pressure from Rohingya and from all human rights activists. Their products should be boycotted. There should be demonstrations in front of their gas stations, because many of these are oil companies. There should be lots of public protest about the Rohingya oppression, the persecution of the Rohingya. Persecution is the stage of genocide that occurs just before actual extermination, before actual genocide. Now, we've seen that there have been genocidal massacres already against the Rohingya, but the overall situation of the Rohingya today is of continuing massive persecution. People cannot get health care. Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, was actually kicked out of the Rohingya area because it was giving health care to the Rohingya. The government clinics are not dispensing adequate health care to Rohingya, so people are dying because of perfectly preventable diseases of completely curable causes. The government in the area where the Rohingya live is entirely dominated by Burmese. There are essentially no Rohingya in government positions. The parallel that I see as a genocide scholar is to the treatment of the Jews by Adolf Hitler. The Jews were classified out of their German citizenship. They were not allowed to hold university professorships. Their businesses were taken away from them. Their homes were confiscated. Their property was confiscated. They eventually were put into concentration camps. All of these parallels are like what is happening to the Rohingya. Now, what worries me so much is that the world is not paying attention. We must make the world pay attention. So I urge that we ramp up our attempts to get both our Congress and our Senate and our President to pay more attention, to boycott businesses that are doing business with Burma, to hold demonstrations out in front of the Burmese embassy, and also go to Europe and to get resolutions passed in the European Parliament to condemn this persecution of the Rohingya. Genocide Watch has recently helped to lead a campaign to get what ISIS is doing in Iraq and Syria declared to be genocide. And we got a unanimous vote in the House of Representatives to say that, a unanimous vote in the Senate of the United States to say that, and we got the Secretary of State to declare it. We also got a nearly unanimous vote in the European Parliament. So such declarations can in fact be done. And what we should be doing now is gearing up a campaign to get a similar declaration. So I urge all of you to begin this campaign, to remember that you're not alone, that many of the human rights organizations in the world, Human Rights Watch, the International Alliance Against Genocide, Genocide Watch, United to End Genocide, and many other groups are quite aware of what is happening to the Rohingya. And we will join you in a campaign to mobilize people to pay attention to the persecution of the Rohingya. This cannot be allowed to go on another day, much less another year. So I commend your courage, and I commend your determination to end this long persecution against the Rohingya. we should make it clear to Aung San Suu Kyi that if she is going to fulfill her mandate as a Nobel Peace Prize winner, she must end this persecution of the Rohingya. And if she refuses to do that, she should return her Nobel Peace Prize.